we're a few weeks away, but if you see the amount of wrestling shows that we're going to get WrestleMania weekend, like you're going to wake up at 3 a.m. and turn on YouTube, and then I'm going to be like a zombie going, oh, and then this guy did this, and I gave it an up, but maybe I give it a down. But man, that's Simon, he really losing his mind. But I also think it will be a lot of fun, kind of. We're going to talk about it in 1 second, but it is Wednesday morning if you are over here in the UK and you're me. Otherwise, I have no idea what time it is, so it's time to take the finger of power, usually over here, but now Higgs, this one is broken, and give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down when it does come to Impact Wrestling. Also, if you are watching this on Wednesday the 17th of March, do not forget that tonight on the channel at 8 p.m. GMT or 4 p.m. ET, me and Big E, yes, WW superstar Big E, are gonna be live streaming for a little bit as we support his brand new project, OurHeroesRock.org. Now let's up those downs. I have a feeling that Finjuice may not be champions for very long. Just a gut feeling I got deep down in my tum-tum, and here they were kicking off Impact Wrestling as they were not defending those titles against XXXL. This was just a pretty straightforward match too, although when it does come to AC Romero and Larry D, they kind of sometimes do feel like the lambs being led to slaughter. They're always put in these matches where they're just getting beaten up. Also, because they are so huge, now when they walk to the ring, every time they do a stomp, the camera wiggles a little bit, as if they weigh so much, the cameraman feels like he's gonna fall over. Although I swear we used to do that with the natural disasters back in the day. Anyway, this was just a good showcase for our brand new champions who won after the acid drop on Larry D, and you were kind of just sitting there waiting going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then out came the Good Brothers. They stormed out and claimed the only reason they did lose to Finjuice at Sacrifice is because they're appearing on AEW, they're appearing on Impact, they're flying all over the place, so they're hungover, they're also getting drunk all the time, so they didn't beat Gallows and Anderson at 100%, and if they want to accept that victory, well, more for them. They then challenged Finlay and Juice to a rematch, and they gladly accepted, although they did say, well, we're going to have to do it when we get back from Japan, and then they punched each other for a while before Finjuice got the hell out of there. So you see, this is why I think the belts are probably going to go back to the Good Brothers on the same day or on the same show that maybe, just maybe, Kenny Omega becomes the Impact World Champion. Scott D'Amore later on then officially made this match for that pay-per-view, and overall it can have an up. Promo by my friend Sami Callihan next, and you know the deal. He thinks Trey Miguel is a moron, and he thinks he has no passion, which is why in tonight's main event, he's gonna whip his ass. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. This feud has been building for weeks, and we're giving it away on free TV every now and then. That ain't a bad idea. Okay, right, going back to the intro, I'm just gonna say it, and you may gonna get mad, or maybe you'll agree with me, I don't know. We can't actually have that conversation in person. I think Impact Wrestling does too many special events. Because after Tommy Dreamer had finally returned and had a conversation with Scott D'Amore going, dude, what are you doing to this promotion? AEW's crapping all over us and so is New Japan. Scott D'Amore was like, okay, dude, if you think you could do a better job, why don't you book our next Impact Plus event, which is going to be Hardcore Justice on April the 10th. But that just means we have another pay-per-view, which just so happens to be WrestleMania weekend, and then 3 weeks after that you do have Rebellion, and I think when you are dishing them out this quickly, each one kind of suffers from the lack of diminishing returns. Now, fair play to Impact, they are giving you great value if you are signed up to their service, but I want to get excited about these things, and I just feel like they come along too quick and too soon. So because of that, he's got to get it down. We then, however, did get a very smart follow-up from Sacrifice, the last event Impact did, because Rhino was turned to the dark side and joined up with Violent by Design, and as you know, when you're in VBD, the very first thing you have to do is go beat up Jake something, and then if Cody Dean does anything wrong, yeah, beat him up too. He don't care, he'll just be like, oh man, I deserve it, yes, beat me up. He's strange cat. This wasn't really a match though, because it was more of an angle, because you did have Violent by Design and beer guns at ringside, and when they did start fighting, no mortal wrestler can handle that, because Jake something was like, oh my gosh, I think something is distracting me. And it was this, and of course he got distracted by something. I'm an idiot. He was so bewildered he turned around, he got gored out of his shoes to lose to the 1, 2, 3, and I really want to sit down and do a seminar with all wrestlers and say, look, when you're in a wrestling match, Always focus on your opponent no matter what else happens, especially if another wrestler's entrance music starts to play. Just block it out. It kind of ruled though, because afterwards everyone started to brawl and it ended with Rhino goring everyone like he was playing a video game and he just stored up his finisher and then he started spamming it. So you had another segment that ended with VBD standing tall, and they are quite a cool group. I still don't 100% know why they came together, but the mystery has now won me over. I like them. The bad wrestlers for the upcoming 12 women tag team match were then arguing, because of course they were, they're the villains. Although it didn't help that Tenille Dashwood and Caleb with a K went, hey, I've got a great idea for our name. It should be called Tenille with all her followers. Or TAF. Jonah Barazzo and Fire and Flavor had other plans, but eventually the Knockouts champion calmed everybody down and said, none of this matters, we just have to win. And small spoiler, that instantly meant they were going to lose. This was also quite the loaded show, given how many stories Impact Wrestling did decide to follow up on with this evening. Hence why when we got Mahabali Shira versus Rohit Raju, I also went, well, I didn't think we were going to get that so soon. Although I think we did it, so we could do it again, but up. At first it seemed like Rohit was gonna get his absolute ass handed to him because, Shira's a big guy and he was using his power, but what Rohit has is speed and quickness, so he started using that to fight back. Because of that though, you could also spy the ending coming from a mile away because it's wrestling. If you have a super huge guy taking on a not as super huge guy, but you want the latter to win, you use the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, and you let that guy put his feet on the ropes. Nobody can kick out of that. It's the equivalent of getting a gun and shooting into somebody's face. So Rohit essentially stole the pin and celebrated like he'd won the lottery afterwards, but of course it just means we can roll this back, either at Hardcore Justice or Rebellion. It depends which show Impact wants to put it on. Willie Mack then went up to Rich Swann and told him, well done on your big world title win this weekend. You're the man, you're the best. And Rich was like, while I appreciate this, Mr. Mack, I now need to go to the ring. I was like, well, that was quite rude. When he got there too, he made sure he put over Moose and said how much he respected him, but then he quickly turned his attentions to Kenny Omega. He was like, Kenny, you have a pinfall victory over me back from January, which is why when we meet next month, there's no two ways about it. I have to beat you, I have to pin you, and I'm gonna have to take your AEW World Championship. That's like, Rich, that's not going to happen, although there's a big part of me that would flippin' love it. All of a sudden the lights dimmed though, and out came Don Callis, and he proceeded to cut such a good promo that just made you look at him like you are such a manipulating asshole and you're so damn good at it. Because he went into full love mode, saying how proud he was of Rich Swann. If it wasn't for Don Callis, Rich Swann wouldn't even be in Impact Wrestling. And now that he has climbed to the top of the mountain, well, essentially, he's about to come tumbling back down. Because while at one point Swann was Callis' shiny new toy, he now has a shinier new toy in Kenny Omega, and he kept saying this kind of thing over and over. Like another one was, hey, Rich Swann, you're a once-in-a-decade wrestler, but Kenny Omega, he's once in a millennia. So everything that Rich Swann has accomplished is all gonna come crashing down when he does get one winged angel and lose his Impact World Championship and mean that Kenny Omega continues on his journey to collect every single belt. This is one of these promos you just need to go out of your way to watch. It will make you buy into this feud and it will get you so damn excited for that match because we think we know what's going to happen, but deep down in our tootsie toes, we can never be sure. Up. Also, the way that Rich Swann sold this, it was like Don Callis had taken his hand, gone fatality, and just ripped out his larynx. He looked absolutely devastated, so a very, very light round of applause for him. Our weekly AEW advert was next, and you know what to expect from these things now, although this week, Tony Schiavone and Tony Khan were actually in the Dynamite Zone, which nobody has ever called it since the beginning of man. They ran down the card and also told us that Tony Schiavone was going to be interviewing Sting. I was a bit like, don't get back to that point where it happens every single week, but nothing actually happens, although last time I worried about it, flipping Brian Cage powerbomb Sting straight to hell. So who knows what's going to happen. We're also moving forward with the Brian Myers and Matt Cardona feud because they were in the back and Matt Cardona was saying, Eddie Edwards, you're the best. And Eddie Edwards saying, Matt Cardona, no, you're the best. When Brian Myers basically walked up and said, Matt, why the hell did you even follow me here? Why can't you leave me alone? Therefore, at some point in the future, let's have a match and everybody will enjoy it. I'm sure it will be fine. We then had that crazy 12 women tag team match. Now last week I speculated that we must be doing this because some AEW wrestlers were going to get involved. I couldn't have been more wrong if I tried. But what this did turn into then was just an exhibition for the Knockouts division, and they do have a pretty good roster. I thought that was really nice, so I was getting it up. Then there wasn't much to it either. I mean, somebody would do a move and somebody else would do a move and the klaxon sounded ha, and more people got in there and they were doing their move, and I think it's the finish that will kind of play into other matches that we're going to be doing on Impact Wrestling soon. Because the very last thing you did see was Jazz submitting Kimberly with the STF. And who is Kimberly's best friend? It's Deonna Purrazzo. What does Deonna Purrazzo have around her waist? It's the Knockouts Women's Championship. Should we do Jazz versus Deonna Purrazzo on an upcoming TV show? The answer is yes. It would give Deonna another big win for her resume, because of course Jazz shouldn't win this match. And then if we can do Jazz versus Jordynne Grace, well, I think that Jazz would have had a very nice run through the company. We also set up some challenges for the X Division Championship next, and fair play to Impact Wrestling for making sure that this was all ready to go, well, around about 72 weeks ago. Ace Austin was cutting a promo saying that now he's the brand new champion, everything can be good again, when both Josh Alexander and Chris Bate interrupted and said, dude, you better give one of us a championship match because we've both beaten you. And that's true. TJP then also popped up and went, no boys, I want to have one first. And even though they wanted him to go back to the line, or back to the end of the line, he's already got one of those automatic rematch clauses, so we are getting that next week. And look, it was so good at Sacrifice, you can't get mad at that. It was another super fast-paced episode of Impact 2 because then we were at our main event, which was Sami Callihan versus Trey Miguel. Yeah, I thought it was very watchable. It was getting it up. Miguel flew at Sammy to begin with because, of course, Callahan has been being a right dick over the last few weeks. But unfortunately, Sami Callihan then brought that edge he always does to his matches because he, took Trey Miguel's foot and kind of rammed it into the ring frame thingamajig, and he basically destroyed his ankle. He then just stomped on it and worked it over as much as he could, meaning every time Trey tried to mount some kind of a comeback, he couldn't because he was hobbling around like that. Nobody wants to do that. You look like there's something wrong with you. Because there is. It also screwed him right at the end of the match because he wanted to hit a Meteora, but he just couldn't do it in the way that he wanted to. So instead, he fell into Sammy's package pile driver. And yeah, kind of surprisingly, the bad guy won. But I think this ties into a lot of other matches we've already discussed. It's because we're going to do it again, more than likely at Hardcore Justice, because who likes hardcore matches more than Sami Callihan? But I do like this feud, it's nice and easy and it makes all the sense in the world, and if it does end with Trey Miguel getting a big win over Sami Callihan, well that does wonders for Trey Miguel, and that's what we should be doing, rubbing the shoulders of the younger talent and sending them to the moon. The moon is over there. Which brought us to the end of another episode of Impact Wrestling. I sometimes see people go, I don't like Impact Wrestling. And I'm like, well, just don't watch it. It is probably the #1 show that you can always kind of guarantee what to expect, and they always deliver it within that little box. And that's why I enjoy it. Like I say, it is effortless. You can just sit there. It goes on for about an hour 45 without adverts. I have no problem with this. Up. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Impact. Also go to the community page and vote in the poll. It closes today for retro ups and downs. Then like the video, share the video and subscribe. We have a website. It's called WhatCulture.com. We have more videos. They're around my head. And if you're into social media, why not come and give us a follow? My name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you very much for joining me as always, and I will see you throughout the week. In WrestleMania weekend, I'll basically be your partner.